Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about vascular dementia, Parkinson's disease, and their connection to insulin resistance. After Alzheimer's disease, the vascular form of dementia is the second most common form of dementia. Its symptoms are very similar to Alzheimer's. However, vascular dementia occurs because the brain suffers from insufficient blood flow. But the two disorders are related. Accumulated plaques in the brain may hurt blood vessels too. If the plaques-and-tangles theory is correct, Alzheimer's disease may contribute to vascular dementia. Recall the cardiovascular disorders that we covered earlier. We've already seen that insulin resistance extensively influences blood vessel function, so you might expect a strong association between insulin resistance and vascular dementia. Sure enough, the Honolulu-Asia Aging Program, which follows almost 10,000 adult men for more than 20 years, observed that subjects with insulin resistance have about twice the risk of developing vascular dementia compared with insulin-sensitive subjects. This is very likely because of a combination of factors we discussed in relation to high blood pressure, such as altered nitric oxide production, thickening blood vessel walls, and other mechanisms we discussed earlier. Whatever the mechanism, the evidence is compelling. The cardiovascular complications that arise from insulin resistance don't just create heart problems, they might also lead to vascular dementia too. Parkinson's disease is a brain disorder that is most evident in altering patients' ability to control their body movements. On top of motor symptoms like slow movement, stiff limbs, and tremors, it can also lead to other issues like depression, sleeping disorders, fatigue, cognitive changes, although around 60,000 people are diagnosed annually with Parkinson's. We only poorly understand its causes, and we have no way to prevent or cure it. Most people with Parkinson's develop dementia as their disease progresses. The main feature of this dementia is the accrual of proteins called Lewy bodies in the brain. However, even more critical is the loss of dopamine production producing neurons. Parkinson's disease develops in a part of the brain called the substantia nigra, a structure in the midbrain that controls motor movement and reward functions. The cells here produce dopamine, and when they begin to die, the loss of dopamine causes movement issues. Insulin is known to alter dopamine in the brain, which provides direct and causal relationship between insulin and Parkinson's. Furthermore, one study found that by lowering insulin in rats, dopamine receptors in their brains decreased by 35%. And a study in humans found that the most insulin resistant people had the lowest rates of dopamine production in their brains. While the consensus with Parkinson's disease and insulin resistance is that the insulin problem drives the dopamine problem, there is evidence of the reverse. In other words, usually changes in insulin lead to changes in dopamine receptors. But some studies have found that altering dopamine leads to changes in insulin. In rodent and human experiments, improving dopamine signaling elicits an improvement in metabolic function, while dampening the signaling makes metabolic function worse and can even create insulin resistance. The evidence in humans is fascinating. People who were treated with antipsychotic medications, which block dopamine receptors, develop insulin resistance and gain weight. In fact, up to 40% of people treated with antipsychotics may develop type 2 diabetes within 5 years. Once people stop taking the medication, the insulin resistance disappears within weeks. Regardless of the factors directly linking insulin resistance with Parkinson's disease, as a clear association exists. Up to 30% of patients with Parkinson's disease have type 2 diabetes, with possibly up to 80% having insulin resistance or prediabetes. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.